6:22. It's time for Deep Thoughts. So again, hurricane season is a marathon, not a sprint. Now, it starts in June, goes all the way through the end of November. But as we often tell you here on More in the Morning, the most active part of the season doesn't arrive until the summer, until the later summer and the early part of the fall, really peaking in early September. So June, July, tend to be pretty quiet out there, and there's a big reason for that. Before we get to why, let's take a look at how tropical systems form. When it comes down to it, there's a couple ingredients you really need: warm waters and deep tropical moisture. So water temperatures at or above 80 degrees are ideal, and that deep tropical moisture provides an unstable environment that warm air near the ocean surface can just rise and rise unchecked. As it begins to rise, clouds, showers, and thunderstorms form. Now we see that here in Florida during the summer, about each and every day, but we're also over land, so things tend to stabilize as storms collapse. Not so when you just have that bank of warm water sitting there. Air just continues to rise and rise unchecked. You go from a cluster of thunderstorms to a more organized system. Eventually, they'll start to take on that organization, take on that spin, and if the conditions are ideal, they'll become a tropical depression or a tropical storm. So at this point in the season, we're starting to see the waters of the Atlantic warm up a little bit further. It's at 80 degrees, but really that threshold is 78 degrees. I have that in that deep red shade. And we're seeing more real estate now. Much of the Gulf of Mexico, just about all the Caribbean, the deep tropical Atlantic waters warm enough to support that. By the time we get to August and September, just about the entirety of the tropical Atlantic will reach that threshold. But one of the big reasons why the early part of the season tends to be quiet is this: Saharan dust, dry air that sweeps off the coast of Africa in waves. You see it pretty often through June, through July, through early August, and that sort of shuts down once we get to late August and September. So what does Saharan dust do? Basically, as we jump underneath that area of dust, what goes on is it sets up in the middle and upper levels of the atmosphere. As we talked about, what the beginnings of a tropical system is rising air in an unstable environment. This is a stable environment. You get that water, or that air close to the water, that is a little bit cooler than the air aloft, in the dry, dusty air. So air starts to rise, hits that layer, and can't rise anymore. If you don't have rising air, you don't have the fuel to get that tropical system going, and things tend to be shut down then. Across the Caribbean, across the eastern Atlantic through this part of the season. So where do we see storms form this time of the season? Well, that's close to home. And in fact, as we've been showing you, there's a decent shot we'll have something taking a path much like this as we go into next week, and I'll have more on that coming up in your tropical update at the top of the hour. That's it for Deep Thoughts here for today. If you have questions for me for future segments, all you got to do, reach out. You can send me an email, jim.dickey@abc-7.com. You can always reach out on Facebook as well.